Hey there everyone, Hitesh here, back again with another video and welcome to the Git series. So we are continuing our Git series, hope you are enjoying it. In this video, we're going to see a little bit more towards what happens with the Git configuration file. How does the Git comes to know about my name, my email ID and the default code editor to open up whenever we want to write something. Apart from this, we're going to study about one very important file known as gitignore so that we can ignore some of the files which are sensitive and we don't want to push them everywhere. Files like which holds API keys which are very sensitive or maybe some passwords or something similar, we can actually keep them totally separate so that we don't have to mention about, hey, don't track this file again and again, and we can work with that. We'll study a little bit about the git log documentation, and we're going to see a bit about how the hashings are done, what folders are there. It's a little bit, it looks like a little bit lot, but it's not there. These are just the concept. You'll breeze through them. No worries at all. So first, let me share the screen with you and let's go with this. The first idea is to figure out that how does Git come to know about my name, my email and all these details about this. And this will be very helpful for you to know that how this actually goes on. In order to first get about this, first of all, let me go through the notes and work with that. So first, let's understand what is there to study in this one. The first thing that we're going to study about is this command, and this command is not just a lone one. There are a couple of others as well. The command is really simple. It says gitconfig, and then there are two ways of how you can configure the configuration file. One is globally. That means it's system wide. Anytime you make any Git repository or something, this is going to be interacted with the global file. But there is also a case that you can keep your configuration files local to that particular repository as well. Yes, that's the case as well. But usually what I've seen is anybody who is working with the Git, they like to keep everything as a global, especially the name and email. And we'll see that how we can actually configure the editor, and which is the code, in my case VS Code. That's the command line name for it, the code, and when we're going to see about these changes as well. First, let's go ahead and see that how the documentation looks like for this config, and we'll come back onto this one. So this is the documentation of the config. Not really the best or easiest one, but it's easy to find. You can just click on the reference manual and this is where it is, the config. So just click on this. And this is how it looks like. Git config, get and set repositories or global options. We'll be focusing majorly on the global option, but as you can see, yep, there is no shortage of these things. And it can go really, really complex. We have so many options, and if you look at the scroll bar, yes, you will be scared a little that, oh my goodness, do I have to learn all of this? Gratefully, no, we won't be needing all of this to work on with this. First of all, let me show you that how you can set up your username and email. We'll refer to this documentation. It's much easier, and this is from the GitHub itself. And the best part is whether you choose Mac, Windows or Linux, the options are exactly same. The commands are exactly same. So you can open up anytime your GitHub or this documentation and can write down this command, git config, and then we have to provide -- global. And majorly you'll be setting two things, user.name and then user.email. These are the two options that you have to set so that Git whenever makes any commit or any push knows about your name. Optionally, if you provide the email as well, that is also a best option. And my recommendation is to provide everything inside the double quotes, because usually we have first name, last name, maybe a middle name. So Git really doesn't know that when to end these things. If you have just one word, a letter that you want to use, then that's fine. But usually we have spaces. So whenever there's a space in it, it's recommended that you use like this. Let's go ahead and learn about these commands. Actually, just show you that how you can write this command and where does the Git actually writes this command. That's the most important. So the commands are pretty simple. You can just go ahead and say git config, and the options are pretty simple, global, and then you can just go ahead and say I want to use user. The first option is .name. So you can just go ahead and write your name, whatever your name is. Let's just say your name is Hitesh. So you can just go ahead and use that. I'm not going to run this command because my username is already set. Once you're done with this command, then go ahead and use another command, which is user.email. And in this, you obviously have to provide your email. So, oops. Let's go here and we can just remove this and user email. So whatever your email is, just go ahead and provide that. For example, let's just say I have this one. Just go ahead and provide your email. Now this actually brings us to the option that yes, we can go ahead and provide exactly same commands as you can see here, user.name, user.email. Now, another command that we are going to work through with this is this one. So I want to change my code editor. So this is the command that you should always remember. The problem with the default is, since Git is Linux friendly first, it usually opens up the Vim, which is not so cool editor for the beginners to get started. It has its own learning curve, so I recommend everybody to just go ahead and change it to as a default code editor to the Code or VS Code. Now, there is a catch with this one as well, so let me walk you through with that first. If you go ahead and open up your VS Code, sometimes it is possible that while installing the VS Code, your terminal might not be aware of this command. So all you have to do is press Command-Shift-P, or if you're on Windows, Control-Shift-P, and it opens up the panel here, and just go ahead and write code here. Just when you write the code, it will show you a command which says install code command in path. What this is going to do is it's going to make sure that your computer is aware about a command which is in the path and installs the code there. Without this, the whole command that we are going to about to give to the Git is not going to work. So make sure you are aware of this one. All right. Once we're done with this, now let's go ahead and see the command in action that is going to help me to set and configure my code editor. So this is the command core.editor. And by the way, there are other ways of setting the code editor. You can just look at the Google on it, and you can set multiple other editors. Maybe you want Sublime Text, maybe you want something else, you can go with that. Make sure you also pass an option of --wait, so that it not only just opens up the code editor, it waits there for a moment so that you can write your things, and as soon as you close the file, then it starts processing the work. So that's the whole idea behind writing the --wait. So once you're done with this, that's it. That's the whole thing. Now, moving back onto the notes, now that you are aware that how you can set up all these things, I highly recommend that at this point of time, just pause the video and go back onto your repository, create one more file, add that, commit that, and try to just push that. So that's the whole idea. Not push, but at least commit that. Okay. Now moving on, what we saw in just a moment ago that we do have this git log and online. We discussed about this command just a while ago, in case you remember. We worked on to this one. So let me go ahead and remove this. Git log online, one line, not online, one line. It gives me the logs of the Git in just one line. So obviously you might be wondering that, do I have more options onto this one? Absolutely, you do have. Let's go ahead back into this one and just go ahead and look for the log here. It's not easy to find, so I always go for a Control F, find that, and there we go. We can see the log here. And if I just go ahead and click on this, there are so many options that I can work with. Just showing you a few of them. We have options like full diff, log size, start. There's so much of them. Let me zoom out a little bit, and let's just find out the one that we are using, which is one line. There we go. So this is one line option that we have. Let's go. The first one here, the second one, and there we go. So this is the one that we have been using. But as you can see, there are so many more options. So this is the one that we have been using, --one line option. But as you can see, we have options for encoding, we have options for tab expand. I've never used this, notes. There's so many options, and honestly, nobody has ever used them. There are only few which are being used, quite handful in your organization or in your workflow. You always go with that. Right, left, branches, graphs, pretty formats, all medium, short, full, like there's so much of these options. And honestly, nobody is aware of this, but just wanted to show you that how the documentation actually looks like for this. All right, moving on. So let's go ahead and go with the notes. So the next thing that we're going to learn about is the gitignore. So as we can see that the gitignore is one very special kind of a file which is read by the Git itself, and you have to create this file. So let's go ahead and create this file. I'll first go ahead and check where are the things. So I'm into this test1.txt and text2.txt. Now I want to create one more file, and this one is going to be having a very special name, which is .gitignore. And yes, all should be lowercase and it should start with a dot. This is a requirement, no exception at all. Once you go ahead and create a .gitignore file, you'll see that in our code editor, this file actually is available here. And right now this file has nothing at all. So what's the point of having this file? Now, first you need to understand that whenever you have these kinds of files, whenever you're building any big project, there will be a file known as environment variables. And this file holds all the sensitive information like your API keys. And if these API keys gets leaked out, anybody can misuse your system. If these are AWS keys, somebody can spin off machine, bigger machine can lead to the bill. If these keys are Open API keys or Open AI keys, somebody can make a lot of requests and generate a good bill for the Open AI. So you get the point. There are some sensitive information which we want to keep separate and safe. For example, let's just say I have one .env file, very common file to have in this. And let's just say this is my MongoDB URI. And I'm going to go ahead and say this is my test URL path, whatever that is. I don't want this file to keep on going. But right now, the problem is that if I go ahead and check the git status, notice here, if I go ahead and work with the git status, it says that, hey, there are a couple of files which are untracked. This VS Code, don't worry, don't bother about it. This is the VS Code configuration file, don't worry at all. But I don't want this file to be keep tracked of it, or it should go about it. Also, this .env file, since it contains the sensitive information, all the time when I go ahead and work with my directory, then I have to say git add and very carefully that, hey, I want to worry about this gitignore and VS Code, and maybe I've created 5 different files more. Let's just go ahead and do that. That would be super cool. Let's go ahead and say touch, and we're going to go ahead. How many files do we have? 1 and 2. Let's go ahead and say that I want to create one more test 3.txt. And maybe there is one more. And this is going to be test 4.txt. Okay, now let's check the git status again. If I go ahead and run the git status, I have so many files that I have to monitor. And at this exact point, I would love to use something known as git add dot so that it adds all the file that I'm creating. And when we're working with something like JavaScript frameworks, there are thousands of node files. Sometimes this option is better choice. But I cannot do this because, hey, there's some stuff going on. So the point is that you can just go ahead and come into this gitignore file and mention all the files which you say that, hey, I don't want you to keep a track of them. Completely ignore them out of the Git ecosystem. So we can just go ahead and write .env, just like that. Exactly the file name. If you have more folders name, you can go ahead and write folder name. For example, there is a folder / just go ahead and write it like that. Most commonly, you'll see something like node_modules. Like this, ignore all the files and this entire folder. So it's a very common thing. Now, the moment I enter all these things into this, let's check what happens when I run the git status command again. Now notice here in the git status, and if I compare it with the above one, previously it was keeping a track of env, and now it's not keeping a track of .env. I also don't want that this .vs code, since this is just my personal folder, nobody should be keeping a track of this one. So I'm going to go ahead and say, I'll say VS Code and this entire folder. I don't want this folder to be tracked up. Let's see what happens when I go ahead and run the git status again. Now it's keeping a track of gitignore, which obviously we want to push. And it's also keeping a track of all these new files that we have. So pretty good. Let's go ahead and try to run this thing again. And you can do this again with me because you have already set your username and your email. Now you'll be able to follow me along. So let's go ahead and say git add, and I want to add all these files. So let's go ahead and use a shortcut git add. There we go. Let's check the git status, what happens now. So now it's keeping a track of all these files. They are in the staging phase. That's our intermediary phase. We can unstage, we don't want to. Let's go ahead and commit this. Now let's go ahead and run the git commit. And once I do the git commit, no -m option, if I just hit enter now it is going to open up this VS Code editor and the commit file. Notice here the file is commit_edit msg. Keep this note here. I'm going to show you where this file actually exists. This is exactly where I want to be. And this is exactly the file which you might have opened up if you accidentally have run the command without configuring your code editor. So that's a mistake. Be aware of this. Now I can write this message here. And again, don't worry about these hash. These are all comments. They never go inside the commit message, so you can ignore them safely. If you wish, you can delete them, but let's just keep that. That was unintentional, but happens when you do record videos. Anyways, let's go ahead and work with this. Now let's go ahead and write a message for this. And this is my third commit if I'm not wrong. And I'm going to say add third and fourth file. And again, we are following the same convention that we do give command to the code base. Hey code base, do this stuff. Once I save this and close this, you will notice in this, we can simply, no, don't show any notification. But here we can see the commit is performed nicely. And let's go ahead and do the git log. And we can see add third and fourth, whatever that is, third and fourth file or whatever that is. But we can see we are able to successfully do all of this. But there is one more thing that we need to worry about. And not just one, actually, couple of things which probably might be bothering you, probably not be bothering you, but I'll give you these bothering questions. First and foremost, the question is, I know that there is a gitignore file, but how will I know in thousands and thousands of files in my project that what should I write in this gitignore? And thankfully, you can just do a Google for this keyword which says gitignore generator. And yes, folks of the internet are always great. And they have given us so many of these generators. All of them does exactly the same. Let's choose the second one, first one, whichever you like, feel free to choose them. Let's just say you are working on node project. Just go ahead and click on the node and just simply say create, and it will give you a pre-generated template which simply gives you that commonly ignored files. And you're going to see that yes, there is a .env here which are being ignored. So most of them are pretty good. And it's just not about node, it's just I work mostly on that. You can just go ahead and look for the Django files if you're working in that ecosystem. So yes, these generators are available. Even there are VS Code plugins for these generators. So anytime you're working with this, it's a good idea that you come up here and just look for whatever you are working, whatever you're coding. And again, by the way, I can show you more as well. There's the first one by Toptil. And you can see that, hey, if I go ahead, they all give the same file. They're all being same. So you can see this is how you can just copy and paste this one. So yes, don't worry about having the gitignore file. It's totally fine and totally okay to copy paste the things here. All right. Another thing which might not be bothering you is we studied about this one thing, which is this one, gitconfig. And if we are providing the things like user.name, user.email, there is 100% case that this is getting stored in some or the other file. Where is that file? I want to see that file. Maybe you don't want to, but I want to see that file so that I can know where the things are actually going. And of course, we're going to do that. For this, first of all, we need to hit the root of the Mac, or if you're in Linux, again, the same command. All you have to do is hit the CD. This is the home directory. By the way, you can check this out. This is my home directory of the entire computer. In the Windows, it's usually the C drive or the user's drive, wherever you are, you can figure that out. And in here, what we can do is we can just run the cat command onto a very special file known as dot, and it's known as gitconfig. This is the global configuration file. If I go ahead and hit enter onto this one, now you can see that it gives me name and it gives me email. It gives me the sign-in key, which obviously I'm going to blur out. This is my sign-in key, which I use to sign in into the GitHub account. But yeah, this is how it looks like. And also you might have noticed that it says editor is code -- wait. So by the way, it has a lot of blocks like the user block, the commit block, the GPG block, and there can be other blocks as well, which can work through with that. I'm going to go ahead and hide this because I don't want you to show my GPG keys and all these things. But yes, the whole idea is that everything is stored in some file. And if any time you think that I don't remember the command or something, you can literally go into this file and change it. There is nothing wrong with that. It's totally a configuration file. That's it. All right. So moving on, a couple of things behind the scene theory that I want to share with you. These are really interesting ones as well. So how does the commit work? Now that we have seen that couple of commits actually work. So if I go ahead and check out my Git section here and the Git, we can see we have 2-3 commits which are going on, and we can work through with that by simply running the command git log online. First of all, we need to go back onto this folder. Let me just go into this folder. And for this, let's go ahead and drag and drop this. I'll just go ahead and say, yep, that's the one I want. And let's go ahead and do a quick ls git one. Let's go into the cd git one. I love these suggestions. Let's try the command again, which is, yeah, this one. And we can see that these are the commits and we have no idea, but somebody's saying head is pointing towards master. I have no idea what that is. I really want to explore this. Let's go up here and try to see what happens with these commit messages. So in the world and the ecosystem of the Git, every commit is dependent on the previous commit except the first commit. And that's exactly is mentioned in these notes. As you can see, whenever you make a commit, and how does a commit is comprised of? If you look at here, there is a really long unique ID up here. This long unique ID is known as the hash, and hash is generated. It's nothing, just a long combination of letters and numbers. So it is generated uniquely by some algorithms known as SHA-1 and a couple of other algorithms as well. So it is comprised of this, a commit message and some information about it. But what's not being shown here, that the commit is always dependent on the previous commit as well, because it's a tracking mechanism which helps us to track what happened between the previous commit, the previous checkpoint, and the next checkpoint. And this is exactly I've tried to present here in the demonstration. So this is our first commit. Every commit will definitely get a hash, but there is also an information about the parent, like what is your previous commit, who is your previous. In the very first commit, the parent pointer, yes, this is exactly a pointer, points towards the null that, hey, I'm the very first commit, I'm not dependent on anyone. And apart from this, couple of other information is also stored, like what was the system, what was the time, what was the user, what was the email, and all these things. So this is all is being captured inside the info itself. Whenever the second commit is made, you obviously generate a hash, but this hash is generated based on the previous hash, the previous parent information, and some of the chunks of the info. Not majorly, but it's heavily dependent on the hash and the previous commit. And this parent is going to be pointed automatically towards the previous one. And this is exactly the mechanism which helps you to go back in time or in the previous checkpoint so that you can just restore the file information into the previous saved information. And the third one goes exactly like this. We have a hash, we have a parent which will point towards the previous one, and we have the information. So pretty simple stuff. But what's fun is actually to found this ability to check all these hashes. Let me show you how we can do that. Now, if I go into this folder, what you're going to notice is I can do a ls. All right, that's good. But what you'll notice is I can also do an ls-la, which is a command to give me a long listing and show me all the hidden files as well. And what we can see now is there is a folder known as git. And yep, this is a directory. Yeah, that's nice. Can I go into this directory? Of course, there is nobody stopping you to go into this one. It's your system. Let's go ahead and say that I want to go inside this git. And if I go into this git and do an ls, I can see so many of these things. One file which I've just seen is commit_edit msg, the message file. Remember the file which we opened up while working with the commit when we didn't pass the message -m? Exactly that file. But not only that, we have some of the folders known as hooks, objects, refs, index, head, and some of these files as well. The better structure that we can understand here is doing in long listing so that we can see some of them are files and some of them are folder. So as we can see, these all things are file. This whole thing and including the index one, these are all the files. But here the hooks and the info, logs, object, these are directories. And what's the fun if we cannot go inside these folders? So what I've done is inside the code editor, I have actually opened up so that I can see all the dot files. By the way, you can do that pretty easily by opening up Command-Shift-P. And if I, or not just Command-Shift-P, if I just go ahead and press Command and comma, or on the Windows Control and comma, you can see that this option is there, which says files, exclude file. And here you can see the dot git is there. Just go ahead and mark an X on that. Just remove it. And that's it. You'll be able to see all of your hidden folders. Anyways, the whole idea now is that can I go into this git folder and explore these things? So if I go ahead and zoom this a tiny bit more, we can see that all these are folders and some of them are commit edit messages. This is exactly the file that we opens up when we write these messages. We do have some of the things config, the core configuration, which is repository level, not the global level. We have the file which are descriptions. We don't want to worry about that as of now. It's an unnamed repository. We also have this interesting thing, which is head, which is, notice here, is pointing towards the master. As I mentioned, in the Git, you are always on some branch. We are right now by default the branch master. And that's what this head is pointing. We'll study about the head in the upcoming videos, but right now this is enough. Index, we don't want to go into that because that's a file we don't want to open right now. It keeps everything in check. But not only that, you can also see that there are some other things as well. Most importantly, the hooks. This is one of the most advanced folder in the Git. And this is exactly, if you have studied hooks in JavaScript or React or anywhere else, this is exactly the same. So if you want to execute some of the scripts or some of the commands or some of the code which needs to execute just before the commit or just after the commit message, or you want to control that how the commit message actually goes, or maybe you want to add the ticket IDs and you want to validate that whether whoever is committing the message is providing the ticket ID for solving this bug, you can actually do all of this through here. And a lot of companies does that. And it's nothing, these are just the samples here. You can go ahead and change these samples like pre-push. So this is all the code that how you can write these code. Let me just zoom out a little. So these are all the codes that how you can actually have an example hook script to verify before the push, just the pre-hook. There is pre-rebase. A lot of companies use rebase. We'll talk about them later on. It's a pretty nasty and scary command. But we have commit message. If you want to control that how the commit message should look like, you can write a hook for that. And this is a little bit out of the scope of this entire course or even any course at all. But yes, and this is totally possible. We do have info as well. Not going to be touching it much. It's not useful for us as of now. This is where we keep all the logs, that what all happened in our repository. If you just remove this, everything is gone. And again, this head is not readable much as of now, but some of the points we can read about, like add third and fourth, all the commit history actually goes into the head. We do have some of the references as well, like where the head is pointing towards master as of now. Later on, I'll show you how to change the branch, and we'll come back here and we'll see that how this heads actually get changed. So the software, how it works internally, is totally open to us. And this is what I love absolutely about it. So coming back onto the notes part. So this is what we have studied into this particular video, that how the commit message are being made and are being stored in our application. That's a really fun part. And I hope this actually gives you a more clarity of how the software works internally. And once you know this, you get much more confidence of using the software in itself. It's not really that hard. In the next video, we're going to be talking about the branches and what I've been yelling around for some time about the master. What is this master and what are these branches? This is all what we're going to study in the next video. Hope you have enjoyed this video. If you have enjoyed this, do let me know in the comment section. It really, really motivates me to make more such videos. That's it for this one. Let's catch up in the next one.